Yes, it's me, Mike Stone, and this is the Backseat Driver Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Gas Shocks, home of the 116 Trophy and 120 Coupe Cup. Audi Tyres, find the best tyres for your vehicle, supplying all the top brands to keep you covered in every season and every condition. Tarox Brakes, the art of slowing down, precision engineered in Italy for ultimate performance, and Specialised Automotive Services, specialists in high-quality automotive maintenance and classic car restoration. You can find the details of all our proud sponsors for this episode in the show notes. I'd like to introduce the Backseat Driver, a man who is described by Tom Kristensen as a man, and I paraphrase here, with a passion and deep understanding of the sport that shines through in the pages of the book. I have no doubt you will enjoy this book as much as I have enjoyed reliving these unforgettable years. So I'd like to introduce to the Backseat Driver the author of Le Mans, the official history 2000 to 2009, the one, the only, John Brooks. John, welcome to the Backseat Driver.
Well, thank you. That was rather an introduction. I shall be quaking in my boots, I think.
Now, your latest vast and weighty tome on Le Mans, 2000 to 2009, is the latest one in what is a series. Le Mans each decade has been covered studiously by a variety of people. How did you end up doing 2000 to 2009? Was it something you wanted to do, or was it something somebody said, or have a do at that?
Well, a bit of both, really. I mean, Quentin Sparing came up with the original concept, and he did the first 7 volumes. Quentin was the editor of Autosport during one of its heydays for about 20 years, and then he set up Race Car Engineering.
Oh, yeah.
Regrettably, around about the middle of the last decade, his wife was diagnosed with a nasty condition, shall we say.
Yeah.
Quentin, being the absolute gentleman that he is, decided that actually 7 volumes was enough, 2 magazines, and he then dedicated himself to looking after his poor wife.
Yeah.
And she had been a major factor in the development of Race Car Engineering. He then passed on the book to one of his protégés, who shall remain unnamed.
Yeah.
And 5 years later, he hadn't turned anything in. And the publishing director at Evro, the saintly Mark Hughes, finally decided that he would look elsewhere.
Yeah.
In parallel, I had been doing writing for various websites in America, paid for stuff, writing odd magazine articles, helping with...
Just butting in, that's getting a rarity these days for somebody to actually put their hand in their pocket for you.
Yeah, well, that is very true. Sometimes you needed to encourage them somewhat, but that's another story for it. You know. So there was a book published by Evro, or no, it wasn't Evro, it was another company, but Mark was the chief editor, and it was about 25 years of GT racing. So it was Stefan Rattel's story.
Yeah.
And I helped picture edit that and sub-edit it in places. But I was also encouraged, because I'd been more or less from the start of Stefan's adventures, and this may be 93 and 94, I was encouraged to do a couple of pages of my thoughts on GT racing. And Mark rather liked it and said he took a big chance and asked me to do it. How can I say? It was due 18 months to 2 years. It took 4. He asked for 90,000 words max. He got 172, which I then had to pare down 30-odd thousand words. But he seems quite pleased with it. And, if I get anywhere near if I get close to the achievements of Quentin, then I'll feel I've done I've done my duty as such. And yeah, I really enjoyed doing it.
Now, you've had a passion for Le Mans for decades. I mean, your era, a fraction before mine, was the great Porsche 917s. And you followed it for decades. I mean, how did you develop your passion for it into a job?
There's a question. Well, it all started with the likes of Andrew Marriott, Michael Cotton and Dennis Jenkinson writing for a sort of spotty schoolboy back in the late 60s. And then we had this amazing thing, as you said, the 917s and the 512s. Indeed, I actually saw 917s race at Brands Hatch in 71. But it wasn't a day that they would want to remember, as both Gulf cars one ran out of petrol, rather the fuel filter got clogged, and the other one had a wheel that wouldn't come off, so Alfa Romeo ended up winning the race.
Yeah.
But I followed that, and then I went to Le Mans for the first time in 78 on a Padron Moyes special.
I remember those adverts vividly.
Yeah, the oldest train, the oldest ship, boat, ferry, the oldest bus. It was not exactly travelling in style, but anyway, I met up with a couple of fellow enthusiasts and we did what many, many, many British fans did, which was get fairly well refreshed at the many bars that were there. Following year, I went back with a camera, because the guy I was going to go with was getting married fairly soon, and I don't think his bride-to-be entirely approved of me. Can't imagine why. But I'd like to tell you that I took great pictures from the start, but actually nothing came out because I didn't know how to load the film properly. I know, pathetic. A year later, I went back with a camera, and actually I've sold some of the pictures from 1980.
Right.
And at that point, I started to get interested in photography per se, and I eventually figured a way of getting passes. I think it was an Irish newspaper published over here, because there were some Irish drivers in Formula 3. So I followed Formula 3 seriously for 81, 82, 83, the latter being the Senna year. I lived in a place called Charlton Village, down between Sunbury and Staines, and next to a load of reservoirs. And the only other famous thing in the Charlton Village, or notorious thing, was a thing called West Surrey Racing.
All right.
And they ran Jonathan Palmer, Kiki Mansilla, Ayrton Senna, and many others afterwards. But by then I'd kind of moved on. And Dickie Bennett, who's still running West Surrey Racing, God bless him, and winning in British touring cars, he lived 5 doors down from me, and I had one of his mechanics living in my house. One stage I had Jonathan Palmer's press manager staying with me. We all drank in a pub in Shefton called the King's Head, which is sadly no longer there. And people from Formula One went in there. Herbie Blash lived 50 yards up the road, so when he wasn't running around with Bernie, he would be in there, quite a lot of others. So there was a racing atmosphere. And then the next thing I went to, in 82, I started going to the Group C races, which kicked off then, and was there when Jackie Ickx won the world title of Brands Hatch by 5 or 6 seconds.
Yeah.
Quite an amazing afternoon. So I was kind of hooked on sports car racing. And while I went to Monaco a couple of times, I went back then with a pass that I managed to cadge in 84, and then went there up until 2019 every year as a member of the media.
Yeah. Now, from the sounds of it, I mean, your, shall we say, thoughts and train on motorsport are very similar to mine. Though I've watched F1, I'm afraid of late I've rather fallen out of love with F1. I mean, whilst the Belgium Grand Prix was running, I was watching the Tour de France that I considered to be a far better race and a far greater spectacle. I think the thing about GT racing and sports car racing is the car is more of a star than its crew, but the drivers seem to be of a different mindset because they have to work as a team. There's more than one driver in each car. And it's the sheer endurance factor, the fact that back then they, in many ways, unlike today's modern Le Mans, they had at times to nurse a car for the duration.
Indeed, they did. And that still occurs from time to time. The cars are far more reliable than they used to be. Even up to the 90s, people had problems, and then the likes of Peugeot and Audi came in at different times in the 90s, and they brought with them, as did Toyota, they brought with them the mindset of rallying, which is you've got to fix it and you've got to work around it.
Yeah.
Or hundreds of miles away, and you have to build in such a way that you can fix it quickly. So Audi had the gearbox, they figured that there was transmission issues before they ever went near to La Sarthe.
Yeah.
And they put together a system whereby they could change the rear end in a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
I think they got it down to 3 minutes by the time that the French ganned it. And it was amazing. You'd see an entire rear end, gearbox and suspension, etc., on a pulley above the car, and then you see the back going off, this coming down, and about 2 minutes later, Kristensen or McNeish or whoever would be accelerating down the pit lane, back into the race and back into the lead. But I mean, Formula One went in a different direction, and I stopped going in the 80s. I keep an eye on it because it's the pinnacle of the sport, so they tell us. But I went to Le Mans and I kind of fell in love with the place.
There is something about Le Mans. I mean, I've said to people, some friends of mine went for the first time this year. I said, you will not believe the place when you get there. I said, it is his own little world. I said, nothing outside Le Mans exists whilst that race is on. I said, the atmosphere, I said, everything. I said, you won't credit the number of people there. I said, and it's just so atmospheric. I said, especially on the build-up to the start of the race. I said, it is just unique. Everything about Le Mans is unique.
Quite. I mean, the only place I could imagine that might have a similar sort of build-up is the word you used, and I think it's right, would be perhaps the Indy 500.
Yeah.
Because the Americans tend to be very good at, rah-rahing and all the rest of it. And they've got something that they are rightly proud about there. But going back to Le Mans, there is, having now worked on both sides, I worked for a team for 5 or 6 years as PR. You can feel the tension within the pit box. First thing, everyone arrives 7 o'clock on race morning. It's those who haven't been there working through the night. And the next thing you know, oh my God, we've got warm-up. Oh, let's hope nothing goes wrong there. So you do the warm-up and everyone relaxes a bit and has the coffee and the breakfast and the croissant. And then it kind of grips you. And you think, oh, we're going to be starting soon. There's only 4 hours before the beginning of the race.
Yeah.
And the build-up is there. How the drivers remain calm is quite amazing. But you can see it amongst the guys, and it really is a team sport. The drivers are the stars, if you like. But everybody, the only way to win at Le Mans is everybody pulls in the same direction.
Yeah. And
everybody is motivated and believes in it. I've been lucky enough to be there and be with a team when it's won its class. I've also been there when they've had cars go out. And, fortunately, we never had any major incidents in terms of, drivers being endangered in any way.
Yeah.
And that's one of the big changes that Le Mans and everywhere else, that since the mid-90s, the levels of safety have, really raised up. And racing hasn't gotten any less dangerous, but the consequences of something going wrong are not as potentially fatal as they used to be.
No, I think the other thing with Le Mans, I think it's something the drivers, they have to practice, of course, is, and when I've been there, like when I'm at Classic Le Mans, you talk to the drivers, it's racing in the dark. It's a whole different ball game, is racing in the dark.
Indeed. And some drivers thrive on it. I mean, the worse the conditions, the better they go. I mean, if we go back to 1995 and McLaren's amazing win there, JJ later was on a different solar system to everybody else. It was. You had very skilled drivers out there, the Mark Blundells, James Weaver, all those sort of guys racing similar cars. And yet JJ was just so much quicker than anybody in the dark, the wet, the oil. He reveled in it. Yeah. And that's how McLaren ended up winning Le Mans for the first time.
Now, I mean, looking at the book, I mean, it's 2000 to 2009. It was the decade when Tom Kristensen, who won 7 times, and Audi won nearly all of them. And when it wasn't when it wasn't a car bearing the Audi badge, it was a Bentley, which ultimately was an Audi.
I would vehemently disagree with you about that. The Bentley was built in the UK. The Audi was built in Italy. I remember helping edit a book on the Speed 8.
Yeah.
And Alden Haynes, who was the head, he was the chief engineer on the winning car in 2003, and also was very much responsible for the amazing victory in 2008 when Audi had a car that was 6 seconds a lap slower than the Peugeots, and they still won.
Yeah.
And what he said was the Bentley Speed 8, the Audi R8 had little in common with the Speed 8, but the Audi R10, after the Audi guys had worked on the Speed 8, had a lot more in common.
Yeah.
Even the engines were never the same because Audi used the injection system in 2001 when Bentley showed up.
Yeah.
And it gave them a couple of extra laps a session. But you're right. I mean, it is the decade of Audi. It's the decade of Tom Kristensen. It's the decade of Corvette racing.
Yeah.
We all talk about the top class, but actually GTS, GT1, whatever they called it that week, used to provide arguably the best racing of all between ProDrive and Corvette.
Yeah. And the other thing with the Audi, of course, it was the advent of the racing diesel, was it not?
Indeed. Ulrich Boretsky was Audi's top engine man. And I remember having a beer or 3 with him one day, and he explaining that they started thinking about the diesel in 2001. And they engaged with Poissonneau and Perdry and the other officials at the ACO, trying to put together a formula that would work for everyone. I mean, it was uncharted territory. One diesel had run previously at Le Mans in 51, 52.
Yeah.
And that was a couple of brothers who found a Jeep in their field abandoned by the US Army after the war, and thought, we can do something with this. And they finished the race, amazingly.
Yeah.
But getting back to the diesel, they started putting together the formula for it. And that instantly made Peugeot think, we need to get back in. I mean, you've got to remember that Le Mans nearly became extinct in the early 90s. 28 cars started in 1992.
Yeah.
They were in danger of going bankrupt. So the management under Cosson and Plassard, who were the heads during this period, they really pulled things together, and they got the American Le Mans Series going, European Le Mans, which became Le Mans Endurance Series. They got manufacturers interested at all levels. They did a really, really good job. And they built the foundations for what is an amazing race today.
Yeah. So basically then, the advent of the diesel allowed Le Mans as such to survive and the manufacturers all to have a rethink, because I can remember when it was announced that Audi would be racing diesels, and it was shock horror. Good God, diesels.
Exactly. And what I mean, if anything, The figure that I always think about with Audi is when they arrived in 99, they were selling 670,000 cars, something like that.
Yeah.
By the time they left, it was 1.5 million, 1.7 million, something like that.
Yeah.
Now, it's not all down to racing, but having a diesel win Le Mans send a clear signal that these were not just engines for trucks, but they were engines for luxury motor cars or upmarket motor cars.
Yeah.
So that was one area.
I mean, just putting in, I can remember the advent of the 2.1 Perkins engine, I think it was a Perkins, for Granada. It was a taxi driver's favourite, along with the diesel Mercedes-Benz, and in many ways that's all a diesel was looked upon, something for a truck, a van and a taxi.
Indeed. So that was one area that they certainly changed the face of motorsport through that. Okay, we've come back from diesels now, and the fashionable thing is hybrids and electrics, etc. Who knows where it's going to go from here? Because certainly, if we were having this conversation in 2002 and you said, "Oh, there'll be diesels on the grid in a couple of years' time," or I said it, you'd have said, "You're mad."
Yeah.
Or you've had one too many.
Yeah, I can remember saying to a friend of mine, I said, "And bloody diesels won Le Mans." I said, "I give up at this."
Quite. But, the struggles between Peugeot and Audi during 2007 through to 2011, I think it was, were utterly amazing.
Yeah.
Peugeot arrived in 2008 looking as if they were going to just blow the opposition away, and Audi adopted a strategy where they knew they couldn't match them on the track. So every day between, I think the pre-qualifying was the weekend before the weekend 2 weeks before the race. And every morning, all the Audi people were in at 7 o'clock, practicing pit stops, practicing changes, practicing changing that. They figured they could make time up in the pits.
Yeah.
And who knows what happens. And of course, the rain came. And the Audi coped with the rain better than the Peugeots. You could say that Kristensen, Capello and McNish were probably the ideal team to have up front because they were the only ones who could take the Peugeots on speed terms. As I say to people, there's a reason Tom Kristensen has won Le Mans 9 times, and it's not by luck. But, those struggles were at the front. Most of us who go along, either as fans or working there, also pay strict attention to the GT1, GT2 battles. They were amazing.
Yeah. I think that's one of the problems at Le Mans, when you watch it and the coverage on TV, etc. It's a lot of the time it's the top cars, as they are now, hypercars, or as they used to be back then, LMP1, Le Mans Prototype 1s. They were 1s, 2s and 3s, but they tend to concentrate on the top cars. And in my opinion, a lot of the time, unless you're there, the lesser categories tend to be overlooked a little bit, where many years ago, such as Alpine and cars like that, they knew they wouldn't win, but they went for the order of index, the economy, the furthest travelled on, the least fuel. I mean, the lesser categories play a very, very important role because a lot of the cars are, want a better term, modified road cars.
Well, indeed. I mean, okay, the GT1s, GTS were a long way changed from the car that they were based on. The 550 Maranellos that ProDrive built had very little in common with the cars that came off the production line at Maranello.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, and it's similar for Corvette, but when you went to GT2, sure, things like roll cages and all the other bits and pieces are in there, but a 996 GT3 race car wasn't that much different from a 996 GT3 road car.
No.
And people could relate to that. And I think you're entirely right. When you're there, you see the system of lights, showing which the top 3 cars in each class had lights down the side. That was introduced in the middle of 2005 or 2006. So, and they're different coloured, so you can tell which of the four classes the car's from, and you know which of the top three are there. So, 1, 2, 3 on the lights.
Yeah.
They have a similar system in the Spa 24 where there is a light at the front on, or a display on the front window showing the class and the position.
Yeah.
So it does enable those who are there to actually engage far more deeply than those watching it on television.
Yeah. And I think the thing is, when you're there and you're, shall we say, it's Sunday morning and the race is well developed, you can then start plotting in your mind who's where, who's doing what, who stands a chance. Is he going to finish? Is the guy running in GT3 who's leading at the moment, but you look and you think, well, he's doing very well, but the guy in second is more than likely to catch him and overtake him due to pit stops, etc. And you can mentally try and work out the shuffling of it all.
Well, that's true. But they also, aside from the television's natural tendency to follow the big lead cars, you've got this thing pioneered by Radio Le Mans, and now there are others out there. And the commentators, such as lovely John Hindhaugh or Paul Trustwell or whatever, they keep an eye on all of the classes, and if you're listening to it, you will be kept up to date. You can listen to it now online. And the recent Le Mans, during the Sunday morning, I had it on while working. The joys of self-employment mean you work all the time you can. Well, you then make a bit of money. Yeah, so I also run a photo library.
Yeah.
Both my archive and also the archive of a couple of other photographers. And with the recent changes in modern historic racing, there's quite a market in these cars, and therefore people want pictures of them. That's one of the things that I was actually probably as proud of. Finishing the book was almost a miracle, but actually all the photography is mine in there.
All right.
It won't be for the next volume because I had other responsibilities.
Yeah.
But I determined why I didn't get every incident, and nobody gets every incident. In fact, a lot of incidents and things that happen are never seen anyway because the track is so huge and you can't access parts of it, no matter who you are. Because it's a public road.
Yeah.
Where else do people race on public road these days? The Isle of Man is the only other one I can think of, and possibly the old days at Spa, when it was, the old Spa, the frightening place.
The French gave us motor racing, but it was Brooklands that gave us a circuit. But until then, all racing was public road.
Indeed. In fact, the first Grand Prix was in 1906, and it was held at Le Mans.
Yeah.
Now, okay, it was to the east of the city rather than to the south. And if you go along there, there's a Novotel and there's an underpass, and the underpass was used during the race itself. And in fact, at the centenary, there was a big celebration of it all, and they got, I think, 30 or 40 pre-war cars back.
Yeah.
But you're right. One of my favourite quotes from Monsieur Cosson, who was the president of the ACO up until 2003, he gave a press conference, I think, in 2002, 2003 at the French ambassador's residence in London. And he said, Le Mans is a race organised by the French for the English.
Yes. Yeah, it's the only holiday. It's the only national English holiday that takes place in France.
Indeed. That's a very succinct way of putting it. People do go over. The only other place I've been to that has a similar sort of atmosphere was Sebring.
Yeah.
Now, Sebring started in 1952, I think it was, first ever round of the Sports Car World Championship. And people started going along there and camping, and they made friends with the people who were camping next to them. And whole generations go along because their dad did it, because their granddad did it.
Yeah.
And there's a similar sort of vibe at Le Mans, Not quite so much, because Le Mans is so much more expansive than Sebring, which is quite a tight little circuit based around a bomb, a B-17 bomber training base for World War II. But, the few times I was lucky enough to go to Sebring, maybe 5-10 times, and you got to meet the same people. And they didn't care really much about the track action. They loved it.
Yeah.
But the important thing was going along and meeting your mates and once a year. And I think that spirit is still at Le Mans itself.
Now, the one thing is, after he gave you the glowing introduction that I paraphrased at the beginning, Tom Kristensen, I mean, how did Tom get so damn good at this?
Because Formula One messed up and didn't take him on. You know how he started at Le Mans?
No, I'll be quite honest. No, I'll be perfectly honest, and to my shame, I know little about him.
Right, well, he was driving in Japan, doing Formula 3000 out there, I think it was, or whatever they called it. But he was also doing touring car stuff over here. And in 1997, he was playing tennis near his house a week before Le Mans.
Yeah.
And he got a phone call from, I think it was from Ralph Juttner, who was the team boss at Yost, saying, would you be able to get to Le Mans tomorrow? Because we might want you to race with us.
Yeah.
So he rocked up there, and as he said, I'm playing tennis 1 week, and the next week I've won Le Mans. Now, he had Stefan Johansson and Michele Alboreto as teammates.
Yeah.
He had a car that had won the previous year, much to the chagrin of Porsche, they had gambled on their 911 GT1s winning in 96. And Yost had persuaded Horst Marchant, who was head of motorsport at Porsche, the Christmas do in 95. You got these redundant cars that you built up for Daytona in the beginning of 95, and then they got screwed out. Why don't we act as backup to you at Le Mans, so if anything happens? Well, the problem was that Yost won the race in 96 and Porsche was second and third. This did not please Herr Singer.
I'm going to say this ain't going to go down too well, is it?
No, it isn't. But one of the rewards that Reinhold Jost got was if he won the race, you could keep the car.
Yeah.
So he did. And Porsche then put in a load of development for 97. While he didn't do too well in the FIE GT Championship, it was pretty much the class of the field in Le Mans. And then disaster struck. Bob Wallach, well, it depends who you believe. Some people say the wheel fell off. Some people say he crashed the car. It sounds very unlikely, although because Bob was an amazing driver. But I won't use the expression that he walked into the press room, but he declared himself not very good.
Yeah.
Norbert Singer's always said, actually, Bob, you're blaming yourself wrong. The car failed. And then they were cruising to victory, 2 hours to go or 3 hours to go. And Ralph Kellner is going down the main straight. And the next thing he notices, there's fire coming out. And the next thing you know, Reinhold Jost's trio are back on the top step of the podium.
Yeah.
And that's how Tom got going. And then BMW recruited him very sensibly when Audi came in. And they'd seen how in 99, Kristensen, Leto and Muller should have won the race and didn't because a suspension part broke with about 5 hours to go, pitching JJ into the barriers at Porsche Curve.
Yeah.
So they recruited Tom. I have to say, one of the more amusing things, he went out to do qualifying at Sebring in the R8 in 2000 and missed his braking point on turn 2 or turn 3, I can't remember what they call it, straight into the tyre barriers. Unfortunately, guess who was standing there looking at it?
Go on.
He looked up. Dr. Ulrich.
Oh, very good.
Audi Motorsport. And I've got a picture Well, Ulrich got into the Audi R8 when they towed it back out, and then they put it on a truck, and there's him sitting not looking very happy in the cockpit of the car. But, then Tom went on to win 5 and 6 in a row. Okay, one was a Bentley, but 5 of them were Audis.
Yeah.
And then he should have won in 2007. Again, they were 3 laps up in the morning, and a wheel came off the car when Bindo was behind the wheel. They won in 2008. Which again, they should never have been anywhere near Peugeot.
Yeah.
He's quite modest. He's very intelligent. And speaking personally, the combination of Gindo Capello, Alan McNish, and Tom Kristensen, for me, was the ultimate, because there was no egos, or if they were, they parked them at the entrance to the paddock.
Yeah.
They worked for each other. They worked with a team. That's why they won.
Yeah. So in many ways, you might say it's Christensen's mental attitude to it all that has given him his success.
Yes, I think so. He's very much down to earth. To be a friend of his by any means, but we've shared coffees and a couple of interviews and things like that. And he's just a very well-rounded guy who took his opportunities when they arose.
Yeah.
And you can see other people who have had opportunities and something has cruelly snatched it away. You think of the poor guy in Nakajima, I think it was, in 2016, leading by, 2 laps and then breaking down on the last lap.
Yeah.
How can you cope with that?
Yeah, well, it's like the Toyota that packed up, was it the last lap or the second or the next to last lap, suddenly stopped?
That's what I was referring to.
Yes. I mean, it must be absolutely heartbreaking for that to happen, A, for the team, but B, more so for the poor damn driver.
Well, I will say one thing, and this was something that Audi brought in during that decade, and Corvette Racing and ProDrive had a similar sort of thing going. There was a huge level of respect between the teams. When Peugeot lost in 2008, Audi invited them along to their post-race celebrations. And when they walked in, all the Audi guys got up and applauded them.
Yeah.
And that was repeated the following year by Peugeot. And again, fast forward into 2016 and the incident we talked about, Porsche was celebrating, and an hour into it, all the senior management of Toyota appeared to congratulate Porsche in person.
Yeah.
And it's that spirit you get in Le Mans in particular. You faced the real endurance. It's not a 24-hour race. It's a 96-hour race for the guys working there. Even the spectators have to work quite hard to keep opening the cans and the bottles and such. Of water, of course, sparkling water.
Yes, of course. Oh, yes, definitely.
Yes, definitely. But because of the endurance element of it, people who actually achieve something there. I mean, I worked for teams, one in particular, and we won our class one year, but most years we finished, and finishing felt like victory. It didn't matter where you finished, just crossing the line.
Yeah.
And if a Lowry Kiar guy feels that, can you imagine the mechanics who've worked for a whole year and this is their pinnacle?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Now, you said at the beginning, etc., you're working on the next volume, which will be 2010 to, will it be 2019 or 2020?
No, 2019, rightfully. I won't have to deal with the COVID year.
How's it going? Or do you sit back and think, here we go again?
Well, what I decided to do, because I was very lucky with 2009 to 2009, Quentin had prepared drafts of all the tables.
Yeah.
And because they take quite a long time to do. And I figured that if you've researched all the tables and produced them, then you would be in a better position to write the narrative, because if you do hour by hour following the timesheets, which takes a couple of days a year per race to achieve, then there's a small chance you might know what you're talking. So I started writing a bit, and then I thought, no, this was 2 to 3 months ago, and I've now finished. Today I will finish the 10th year of tables.
Right.
Then there are the tables at the back of the book, all the drivers, etc. And I'd decided to do those next. So all of the, if you like, the heavy lifting is out of the way.
Yeah.
I've started making notes. When I did my first book, and it was the first commissioned book that I'd ever written, I've written a couple of private books for drivers and people like that, or about cars, but I've never been commissioned by a publisher before.
Yeah.
And you learn techniques. For instance, I now have a book that I write any question that I have in. I don't spend 4 hours looking up one obscure point, which could account for why it was delayed. For instance, all the accents and the things like umlauts that are in people's names, I've now written a list of those.
Right.
Because otherwise what happens is you think, Dirk Muller, is that you got an umlaut or not? Now, okay, I know that one off, but there's quite obscure ones, and particularly things from either Spain or South America.
Yeah.
So, I'm able to go straight to a document and pull that out. I make notes along the way. I did a huge amount of research. I got lucky. Pre-COVID, somebody, I think he had a medical condition, and put an ad in one of the forums saying, I got 20 years of Autosport for anybody who wants it.
Yeah.
And I scuttled around there more than once, because 20 years of Autosport's quite a lot of boxes.
Yes, given the fact there's 52 of them per year.
Yeah, something like that, and the odd Le Mans supplement and other things. So I went through from 1990 to 2010, scanning in all the sports car stuff and any other relevant bits and pieces. So I've got all that in documents that I have on file, which I can search. Autosport offered a really good subscription offer a year or so ago, whereby you could, for your 50 quid for the year, you could have access back to 2011, all the issues digitized.
Right.
So I guess you downloaded all of those.
You did.
And then there were the websites, in particular Daily Sports Car.
Yeah.
If I can blow me in trumpet for a second, I was there at the beginning of that. I actually came up with a name for Malcolm Cracknell, and I was a shareholder. Okay, I moved away and did other things, but Malcolm had this most amazing couple of guys in Le Mans.
Yeah.
One in particular, a school teacher called David Lugonier. And they would visit Le Mans and Poissonneau and Perdrix and all the other guys there. Once, twice, 3 times a week, they would get all the inside stories.
Yeah.
Which meant I didn't have to rely on Autosport or Motorsport or any of those. And I've put all of those together. So they form, if you like, the core of the research. And then you go off and chase other things. And that's why it takes so long, because you want to be right.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are mistakes in my book. And there are things I had no idea about, and I can't get anybody to answer either. I'll give you an example. In 2009, I think it was 2009, neither Eric van der Poel or Mika Salo posted a time in qualifying.
Yeah.
And the rules are pretty clear on that. If you don't qualify, you don't race.
Yeah.
And yet they both finished on the podium. One won the class, Salo, and the other was third with Tracy Krohn and Nick Johnson.
Yeah.
And no one can explain to me. I've spoke to Beaky Sims, who was running Risi at the time, Risi Competizione. He can't remember, and nobody seemed to know, which is a bit odd. Oddly enough, getting replies from France is not as easy as you might think it could be in this day of the internet.
Yeah.
And the only theory I've ever had on it was that they wanted Van der Poel to be in the car because one of the other drivers had a tendency to either crash or finish on the podium.
Yeah.
And they didn't want him driving for 12 hours. But no one will officially admit to any of this stuff. And that's, in a way, one of the charms of Le Mans.
Yeah.
You know, there's always the other rule, the one that we didn't tell you about, but actually covers everything else off. And it does. And, you know, it's like everything else. You go over there and you're immersed in the culture of that part of France, you know, La France profonde, as they used to call it. And while Le Mans has been an industrial city for decades, it's also in a fairly rural area as well. And it's all of these kind of mixes, you know, nice wine, nice food. It's a very civilized thing to do at times. Less so when you're arguing with them trying to get in or something. They're stuck in a traffic jam or been stupid enough to go speeding and then a motorbike comes along and nicks you. Fortunately, I haven't had that happen to me, but I do remember being passed by two idiots. I borrowed a Porsche from Porsche GB and was sticking religiously to the speed limit because I was terrified of being pulled over. And two guys went past me, maybe 130, 140 miles an hour. And sure enough, 10 minutes down the road, you see the blue lights, and they're being led off to the cash machine.
Yes.
So, you know, you have to respect the rules over there. They're pretty liberal up to a point, but if you step over the white line, then you will get clobbered. But getting back to the race, there's nothing like it.
No. Truly unique.
Yes.
John Brooks, it's been a pleasure chatting to you.
Well, and you.
And I'll give you another good plug. Le Mans, the official history 2000 to 2009 by John Brooks, published by Evro Publishing, for what I consider a very reasonable £70. It is a magnificent book. As I always say, it's not one you want to drop on your foot. It's big, fantastic photographs, and it relives and reminds me of that era because that was one of the eras I paid particular attention to Le Mans. So John Brooks, it's been a pleasure chatting to you, and thanks very much for joining me on the Backseat Driver.
Okay, well, thank you for your time and your trouble.
And with any luck, we'll speak in a few years' time when the next one's out.
Well, exactly, there's a promise.
Once again, John Brooks, thanks so much indeed. Rarely beaten on price, never beaten on service. Whether it's cars, bikes or commercials, Audi tyres are the best in the business. And when it comes to tyre expertise and advice to supplying the correct tyres for your vehicle's specific requirements, nobody comes close to David Lakin and the Audi Tyres team. So give them a call on 01200 613 192 or visit the website at audityres.co.uk.